Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Global Forbidden Land. Only I Contract Konoha Genin. Chapter 31. A few days later, Yangcheng University returned to its previous appearance. Although the teachers and students of Yangcheng University were traumatized to varying degrees in the previous beast horde, but for Yangcheng University, these are no surprises. After all, as the first line of defense, every teacher and student of Yangcheng University knows very well what it means once they enter Yangcheng University. Dealing with fierce beasts day and night. Although sad emotions spread throughout Yangcheng University, after several days of rest, the teachers and students of Yangcheng University put away their emotions immediately. Su Yu sat cross-legged on the bed in his room quietly, his eyes narrowed slightly. In the body, filled with a strong wave. The 5 basic breathing methods from Ghost Slayer were skillfully transformed by Su Yu. For Su Yu, among the 5 basic breathing methods, the most proficient are the breath of thunder and the breath of the sun. Therefore, in a few days, Su Yu gradually became proficient in the several breathing methods he tried. Da da da. Outside the door, there was a sudden knock on the door. Su Yu opened his eyes suddenly, and the Sharingan of Sangoyu burst out a ray of light. Su Yu jumped out of bed, pushed open the door, and a middle-aged figure appeared in Su Yu's field of vision. Seeing the person coming, Su Yu's heart became slightly agitated. Finally, it's here. The person who came was Li Yeshan. Earlier, Li Yeshan promised Su Yu the right to enter the forbidden weapon area, but it made Su Yu feel a little itchy. Although he has the sun wheel knife, Su Yu still feels that he is not good at it. If he can get a good weapon in the weapon forbidden area, his combat power can also be greatly improved. Even, can have the combat power of a 5-star warrior. Let's go. Without saying anything, Li Yeshan led Su Yu directly towards the forbidden weapon area. Su Yu followed closely beside Li Yeshan. Li Yeshan was a little surprised. You must know that his pace is not easy to keep up. Even those senior students in Yangcheng University who have been settled for a long time may not be able to keep up. As for Su Yu, he just entered the school not long ago. But Li Yeshan felt relieved when he thought about Su Yu beheading more than a dozen 4-star beasts by himself. Genius. Yangcheng University, picked up a treasure. Li Yeshan became more and more determined. Along the way, Li Yeshan explained to Su Yu. How much do you know about the forbidden area for weapons? Li Yeshan asked. Su Yu frowned slightly. He knew something from Duan Binglan and the others before, but to be honest, Su Yu was really not very clear about the forbidden area of weapon. But still replied. The forbidden area of weapon is a special forbidden area of Yangcheng University. It is said that the weapons of those brothers and sisters basically come from the forbidden area of weapon. Li Yeshan nodded. That's right, although the forbidden area of weapon is not as powerful as that of Ghost Slayer, and One Punch, it can bring great strength to the teachers and students of Yangcheng, but here, you can get your own weapons. As a warrior, I don't need to say more about the importance of a weapon. The so-called forbidden weapon area is a forbidden area for choosing weapons. The number of weapons inside is limited, but they often have various extraordinary abilities, so the opportunity to enter the forbidden weapon area is extremely precious. Li Yeshan paused slightly, staring at Su Yu, and said in a deep voice. If you weren't about to represent our Yangcheng University to participate in the 100 schools competition, to be honest, I would rather let you go after a while. After all, a person can only enter the forbidden area of weapon once in a lifetime. I still hope you prepare all right, let's go. Su Yu looked at Li Yeshan, and ripples appeared in his dark pupils. These words are like the teacher back then. With expectations for myself, but with a trace of complexity. Su Yu smiled mildly. Principal, do you think I'm not ready yet? Li Yeshan took a deep look at Su Yu. I hope so. With that said, he took another step forward and walked towards the weapon forbidden area. Not long after, Li Yeshan brought Su Yu to the forbidden weapons area. Looking at the forbidden area in front of him, Li Yeshan said to Su Yu solemnly again. The weapon forbidden area can only be opened once a year. There will be 10 weapons at a time, and a total of users will choose them. The quality of the weapons is good or bad. The more perfect the appearance of the weapon, the stronger the effect. Don't choose those that look just like you. Old weapons. Su Yu nodded slightly, looking at the weapon forbidden area, couldn't help clenching his fists. That weapon that belongs to me, what the hell will it be? According to Su Yu's experience, these forbidden areas all come from the plots of those two-dimensional animations. Presumably, this forbidden area for weapons should be similar. For a while, Su Yu began to guess what his future weapon would look like. Li Yeshan stood behind Su Yu, with his hands behind his back, and the expectation in his eyes was extremely strong. This student who was able to slay 4-star beasts just after entering the school, got the weapon, what kind of demeanor would it be? Under Li Yeshan's watchful eye, Su Yu took a step forward and slowly walked into the weapon forbidden area. A white light enveloped Su Yu's body, and then Su Yu's body disappeared from Li Yeshan's sight. Li Yeshan looked expectantly at the forbidden weapon area in front of him, the scar on his face squirmed slightly, proclaiming Li Yeshan's restless heart at the moment. Wait and see. Waiting for it. Su Yu's whole body was shrouded in white light, and then he entered the forbidden area of weapon. Here, everything looks different. Su Yu seemed to have come to a whole new world. Su Yu slowly opened his eyes, looking at everything in front of him. It's similar to the space in Ghost Slayer. Before, it's all in a white space. However, this time, Su Yu was the only one in the white space. Ding! Please choose the weapon you want to choose. Accompanied by a mechanical cold sound sounded. Cards appeared in front of Su Yu one by one. Su Yu frowned slightly, looking at the card in front of him. There are 10 cards, each of which has a weapon. But, looking at so many cards, Su Yu didn't feel anything. The 10 weapons have various shapes, and many of them are familiar to Su Yu. They are all standard weapons in anime. Although they have some effects, they are very weak. For Su Yu, the necessity of choosing is not great. Suddenly, a card attracted Su Yu's attention. It was a picture of a knife blade. The blade is composed of thousands of fragments, the black handle is half of the blade, and there are blue stripes on the blade, showing the pattern of evil spirits. From the looks of it, the blade seemed to be broken by something. Thousands of fragments were glued together, but there were dents and hideous cracks. If ordinary people glanced at it, they would just pass by. Because this weapon is just a piece of scrap iron. Li Yeshan had told Su Yu before when Su Yu came in. Be sure to choose those weapons that are intact, only those weapons are the most powerful. But, Su Yu is very familiar with this blade. And he also has a hockey name. Magic Knife, 1000 Blades. Su Yu's eyes were instantly attracted by the magic knife Shinran. Because, this is the weapon of the protagonist in Assassin 7. It is the Saber of Qi, the chief shadow assassin of the Xuanwu Kingdom, one of the national treasures of the God-forging kingdom, guarded by evil spirits for thousands of years. Su Yu clearly remembered the characteristics of this magic knife with thousands of blades. The 1000 blades of the magic saber is one of the national treasures of the God-forging kingdom. 1000 fragments of the blade can change shapes and attack the enemy in different ways. Only attacking but not defending, it is unparalleled in the world, and it is the most offensive weapon. But if you don't know how to use it, it is an extremely fragile broken knife. The corners of Su Yu's mouth could not help but curl up slightly. Unexpectedly, this time when he came in, he found such a treasure directly. Su Yu's heart can't help but get excited at this moment. If Su Yu can get the magic knife 1000 blades, Su Yu is 100% sure and has a 5-star combat power. At that moment, Su Yu was overjoyed and chose this knife without hesitation. With Su Yu choosing the magic knife Shinran, the challenge has just begun. The scenery in front of him changed instantly. The white space was slightly distorted, and after it stabilized again, it was already in a black world. And in front of Su Yu, a figure suddenly appeared. The hairstyle is unruly, the face is stern, and the red pupils have a cold murderous look. What he held in his hand was the magic knife Qianren that Su Yu had chosen before. Su Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. As expected, the one I want to challenge is Assassin Qi. Su Yu finally understood that if he wanted to obtain the 1000 blades, he had to defeat the previous owner of the 1000 blades. That is, the chief assassin of the Xuanwu Kingdom, Assassin Qi. All I saw was that the moment Assassin Qi appeared in Puyi, his whole body seemed to turn into a shadow, and in an instant, he charged towards Su Yu. Su Yu's pupils couldn't help trembling slightly. As expected of the chief assassin of Xuanwu Kingdom, it's interesting. In an instant, Su-yu's pupils, Sangoyu, turned instantly. In just an instant, Su-yu found the figure of Assassin Chi in the space. The speed is so fast, if not for the support of Sharingan, Su-yu would be really hard to find. But, now that I found it. That's easy. The sun wheel knife emerged from Su-yu's hand. The whole person also turned into a yellow lightning. Competition speed. Then, breath of thunder. Breath of thunder, one-shaped thunderbolt flash. A frantic yellow lightning flashed wildly, and the surrounding area seemed to be struck by thunderbolts, roaring and exploding. During the flickering of the knife, the target was the chest of Assassin Chi. Suddenly, the magic knife Chinran in Assassin Chi's hand exploded directly, and 1,000 fragments formed a half-shield with a very strong defensive shield. Boom boom boom. The terrifying energy was vented on the defensive cover, but it didn't hurt the Assassin Chi at all. Su-yu's eyes narrowed slightly, and his body instantly retreated. He looked at Assassin Chi solemnly. This move, Thousand Blade Bodyguard. Immediately afterwards, Assassin Chi's body violently exploded. Total annihilation. 1,000 pieces of fragments shot out crazily, like raindrops all over the sky, directly hitting 1,000 vital points on Su-yu's body. If it is hit, even a 5-star powerhouse may not be able to carry it down. But, Su-yu hasn't used all his strength yet. 8 inner gates. 4th gate, open the injury gate. Green energy filled Su-yu's whole body, and his physique was improved in all aspects. In an instant, the sun wheel saber swung out, rushing out of a safe zone abruptly. Su-yu stood on the ground, looking at the figure of Assassin Chi, with a smile on his mouth and eyes. There's something. I'm starting to be interested in you. If it is divided according to the strength of this world, Assassin Chi's combat power can completely approach 5 stars. Coupled with the blessing of the demon saber Thousand Blades, maybe even a 5-star warrior can fight. Unfortunately, Assassin Chi's opponent is Su-yu. Su-yu's eyes became sharper. On the sun wheel knife in his hand, the green energy of the wound was permeated. Suddenly, Su-yu's figure moved. The light of the knife flickered like a wave of waves. The breath of water, the shape of one, slashing on the water surface. The sun wheel knife was raised suddenly, and like a wave, it ruthlessly charged towards the assassin. After all, Assassin Chi is still the chief assassin of Xuanwu Kingdom, and he has very rich combat experience. It directly changed the state of the magic knife Thousand Blades. Bloody storm. The debris rotated at high speed to form a tornado, which directly resolved Su-yu's attack. At the same time, the Sharingan Sangoyu in Su-yu's pupils twirled crazily. Directly capture the weakness of Assassin Chi. As an auxiliary ninjutsu, Sharingan's ability to find weaknesses is simply pervert. Even a top assassin like Assassin Chi was easily found out. Moreover, although the attack of the demon saber Thousand Blades is terrifying, it also has an extremely important weakness. That is, it cannot be defended. Since you can't defend. Su-yu's eyes were slightly fixed, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. As long as my attack is fast enough, what can you do to block your magic knife Qian Ren? The breath of water, the shape of one, slashing on the water surface. It was still the same knife as before. But after swinging it again, Su-yu changed the breath of water into the breath of thunder in an instant. As early as these few days, Su-yu has been able to transform various breathing methods extremely skillfully. Everything is the function brought about by the promotion of Sharingan. The second knife. Breath of thunder, one-shaped thunderbolt flash. Yellow lightning flashed out, blessing the sun wheel saber. Sure enough, the weak point that the magic knife Qian Ren could not defend against was simply fatal. Su-yu's 2 consecutive strikes, on the second strike, directly broke through the magic knife Chinran, and hit the Assassin Chi hard in the chest. The powerful force exploded directly, cutting Assassin Chi's body in 2. Su-yu slowly withdrew the sun wheel knife, and Assassin Chi's body turned into fragments and dissipated. On the ground, the magic knife with thousands of blades pierced the ground. Su-yu strolled over, holding the magic knife Chinran in his hand. Feeling the hostility in it, the corners of Su-yu's mouth could not help but slightly curl up. I got it, the 1,000 blades of the demon saber. Accompanied by the acquisition of the magic knife Thousand Blades, a voice rang in Su-yu's ears. Ding! The challenge is over, ready to leave. The next moment, a white light enveloped Su-yu's body. Immediately afterwards, the space in front of him began to change again. Subsequently, Su Yu left the forbidden area of weapon. After a short period of dizziness, Su Yu regained consciousness. At this time, Su Yu held the magic knife Chinran in his hand. Behind him came Li Yeshan's voice. There was a trace of expectation in the voice. How about it? What weapon did you choose? Su Yu turned around, looked at Li Yeshan, and then at the magic knife Chinran in his hand, without saying a word. This is. Li Yeshan followed Su Yu's gaze and saw the magic knife Chinran. His face instantly became gloomy. At this moment, Li Yeshan was like a volcano about to erupt, and his whole body was filled with a depressive atmosphere. What I said before, didn't you listen? Li Yeshan held back his anger and almost yelled at Su Yu. Damaged weapons must never be selected, because this is the experience of the ancestors with their lives. Before coming out, Li Yeshan still had great hopes for Su Yu, but after seeing the magic knife Chinblade, Li Yeshan felt that his anticipation was like feeding a dog. This kid completely ignored his own words. Su Yu touched the tip of his nose, feeling a little helpless. Li Yeshan stared at Su Yu with red eyes, sticking to Su Yu's face. Said word by word, do you know how precious the forbidden area of weapon is? Do you know how many people have to work hard to enter the forbidden area of weapon? You actually. Li Yeshan felt that he was almost unable to speak. Looking at Li Yeshan's appearance, Su Yu couldn't help thinking of the time when he came out of Hokage. My own teacher also had this expression of hating iron for not being able to make steel. Su Yu comforted. Principal, I feel that this knife fits me the best, and I'm not used to the others. Su Yu couldn't explain it, he could only use this excuse to avoid it. Li Yeshan took a deep look at Su Yu, and his disappointment flashed across his face. It seems to be a little down. Forget it, your own choice, I hope you won't regret it in the future. Li Yeshan turned around and left slowly. Su Yu looked at Li Yeshan's back, and vaguely felt the president of Yangcheng University. It seems that it has become a little rickety. Su Yu sighed. These people couldn't understand that it was normal for them. After all, I am not from this world. After a while, Su Yu left slowly holding the magic knife Chinran. Su Yu sat on the bed in his room. On the lap, what was placed was the magic knife Chinran. Su Yu's eyes narrowed slightly, and the powerful mental power brought by Sharingan enabled Su Yu to learn how to control the magic knife Thousand Blades in a short period of time. If I remember correctly, Assassin Chi controls the demon saber Thousand Blades to control the sword with Chi. And Su Yu directly transformed into using his huge spiritual power to control the magic knife Chinblade. A sleepless night. The next day, the sun came down. It was as if in Yangcheng University, covered with a thin layer of gauze. Su Yu pushed open the door, walked out, and stretched his waist. After a night of grinding, Su Yu has almost mastered the magic knife Chinran. Even, Su Yu could barely display some of the skills of the magic knife and Thousand Blades. Suddenly, Su Yu looked forward and narrowed his eyes slightly. There stood a figure. If it wasn't Li Yeshan, who else? Li Yeshan looked at Su Yu with a complicated expression. Originally, Li Yeshan thought that Yangcheng University finally had a talented player, but he passed through the forbidden area of weapon. It was Li Yeshan who realized that there seemed to be something wrong with his vision, and he misjudged people. Su Yu walked up respectfully and said, Headmaster. Li Yeshan nodded slightly, showing a little indifference towards Su Yu. Su Yu also noticed it and didn't say anything. After all, some of the things they did not allow them to know all the facts. Some misunderstandings are also normal. Li Yeshan then said slowly. The 100 schools grand competition will be scheduled in about 3 months. You should prepare well during this time. Su Yu nodded to show his understanding. Li Yeshan looked at Su Yu with some hesitation. Su Yu frowned and said, Principal, is there anything else? Li Yeshan struggled for a long time, and the expressions on his face seemed to be crowded together. Then Li Yeshan said, Yangcheng University also has a one-punch forbidden area. If you can enter it, your strength can also be greatly improved. Punch. For one punch, Su Yu is very familiar with it. In one punch, Su Yu also has his own goals. That is Saitama. Although that is only AC level hero, he is the most powerful man on earth. Rao is Su Yu, who is very enthusiastic about the forbidden areas of One Punch. Li Yeshan looked at Su Yu and sighed. The forbidden area of weapon does not bring you much improvement. For the sake of Yangcheng University's ranking, I am still going to open the secret area of One Punch for you. Do you understand what I mean? Li Yeshan stared at Su Yu with sparkling eyes, as if he wanted to get Su Yu's answer. Su Yu was silent for a moment. I sighed slightly in my heart. Principal, I may disappoint you again. My goal is Saitama. On the surface, I just apprenticed to AC level hero, but Su Yu knows it well. If you can learn from Saitama, your own strength will definitely increase by leaps and bounds. Seeing that Su Yu didn't speak, Li Yeshan just sighed and patted Su Yu's shoulder. You can figure it out for yourself. At this moment, Li Yeshan still has a glimmer of hope in his disappointment towards Su Yu. Su Yu watched Li Yeshan leave, and then returned to his room. The room was a bit dark. In the dim room, Su Yu's eyes were extremely bright. A punch, comma. The next day, Su Yu got up early, and at this moment, Duan Binglan was already waiting outside Su Yu's room. Su Yu. When Su Yu went out, Duan Binglan showed a sweet smile. With Duan Binglan's perfect body curve, it is even more attractive. Su Yu also responded with a smile. Senior sister. Perhaps after going through the beast tide, Duan Binglan seemed to have a little more emotion towards Su Yu. Holding Su Yu's arm directly, said, "The principal told me that he has something to do today and asked me to take you to the One Punch secret realm." Su Yu rubbed his nose, a little unaccustomed to Duan Binglan's movements. At the same time, I also understand in my heart. There is something wrong with Li Yeshan, but he is disappointed in himself. Otherwise, I will definitely take myself there. However, Su Yu will not take these little things to heart, just like the previous Hokage mystery. Let's go, Su Yu said softly. Duan Binglan showed a sweet smile again, took Su Yu's arm, and led Su Yu towards the location of the One Punch secret realm. Along the way, Duan Binglan kept talking to Su Yu. Su Yu, this One Punch is specially opened for you. I have been in Yangcheng University for so many years, but I have never seen it before. It must be you who killed more than a dozen 4-star beasts and saved the battle of Yangcheng University. Hehe, it should be. Duan Binglan was still so lively, but Su Yu's expression was one of deep thought. What are you thinking? Duan Binglan blinked her eyes and asked curiously. Seeing this, Su Yu just smiled slightly and said, "Senior sister, tell me about One Punch." Although he was certain that this was the One Punch from his previous life, Su Yu still wanted to make sure. One Punch. Duan Binglan froze for a moment, then said, "Actually, the One Punch Forbidden Land is not as dangerous as Ghost Extermination. This is a secret realm unique to Yangcheng University. In One Punch, although there are some challenges that you need to complete, most of them still learn from a hero. Once they learn from One Punch, most Yangcheng University students will be able to improve a lot." Duan Binglan explained with a smile. "It's like my atomic slash, the atomic warrior from a single punch. And Cao Ying's boxing technique comes from Bangu with silver fangs in One Punch. These two heroes, in One Punch, are very famous heroes." Hearing Duan Binglan's explanation, Su Yu couldn't help but nodded. Indeed, in One Punch, these two are both S-level heroes. Duan Binglan and Cao Ying can get the inheritance of these two people, which is still very good. However, Su Yu is clear about his goals. It is the C-class hero, Saitama. After all, that one is the most powerful existence. If you can learn from Saitama, your combat power can also be greatly improved. The two kept walking towards the One Punch Forbidden Area. Along the way, Duan Binglan kept talking to Su Yu. "Su Yu, if you go in, you must learn from S-rank Atomic Samurai and Silver Fang Bangu. If you are not good enough, you must choose a B rank or above hero. Never choose C-level heroes, because most C-level heroes are ordinary people without abilities." Duan Binglan kept urging. "I'm afraid that Su Yu doesn't know the details, and if he chooses a C-level hero at that time, he will really waste this opportunity of One Punch Forbidden Zone. After all, this time, it was specially opened for Su Yu." Apparently, among those senior executives at Yangcheng University, the expectations for Su Yu are still very high. Moreover, Duan Binglin also has an inexplicable emotion towards Suyu, and naturally hopes that Suyu can choose a better hero apprentice. Suyu nodded. Although he agreed, but once in, Suyu will still choose Saitama. Once determined, Suyu will not change his mind. Even if it is a misunderstanding from the outside world, it will not shake Suyu's inner firmness. Because Suyu knows that as long as he can become stronger, those misunderstandings and rumors will disappear. Even the teachers and students of Yangcheng University misunderstood themselves. As long as they walked fast enough, they would only hear the wind in their ears. Only those who walked slowly could hear the rumors from the outside world. Along the way, many of the choices Suyu made were misunderstood by the world, but Suyu never cared. Duan Binglin held Suyu's hand, although Suyu was still a little uncomfortable, but because of Duan Binglin's enthusiasm, Suyu still chose not to say anything. Duan Binglin blinked her bright eyes and said to Suyu, "One Punch Forbidden Area. Every student of Yangcheng University can enter. After entering the Forbidden Area, choose a hero and have an apprenticeship. After the apprenticeship is successful, you will study for as long as 1 month. In the process of learning, you can learn the ability of a hero. How much you can master depends on your personal understanding." Duan Binglin said with a smile. "The savvy of me and Cao Ying is quite good. We all learned their exclusive skills from those heroes." Duan Binglin raised her jade-like neck slightly. It looked like a proud swan. Suyu saw it and said with a smile, "Senior sister and senior brother are very talented." "Of course." Duan Binglin shrugged her delicate nose and said arrogantly. "However, compared with the younger brother, it is still not good." Duan Binglan's eyes are a bit complicated. Suyu's arrival. Undoubtedly, it was a bug of Yangcheng University. Not only did he defeat himself in the freshman's challenge, but he also became the representative of his freshman year. After that, he killed many 4-star beasts one after another. Such a terrifying combat power can only be achieved by those monsters from the top universities. This is also the reason why the senior officials of Yangcheng University value Suyu so much. Not only opened the forbidden area of weapon, but now also opened One Punch for Suyu to test. It has to be said that the senior management of Yangcheng University has a relatively heavy preference for Suyu's resources. Gradually, the two came to the outskirts of the forbidden area of One Punch. Here, just like Ghost Slayer, there are many soldiers standing there ready to fight. When he saw Suyu and the two of them, he let them go. The above has already said hello, and today's One Punch is specially for Suyu. Stand by the entrance, Duan Binglin said to Suyu. Suyu, don't be nervous, just like Ghost Slayer before. Suyu smiled and nodded, then walked into the entrance under Duan Binglan's gaze. White light enveloped Suyu's body, and then Suyu disappeared from Duan Binglan's vision. Duan Binglin folded her arms together, looking forward to it. Suyu felt the space in front of him slightly distorted, and then came to a small world. In this small world, it looks like a shelf in a supermarket. On these shelves, there are all kinds of things. And these things all come from the signatures of the heroes in One Punch. Just like this thing in front of Suyu. It's a metal mechanical arm. Based on Suyu's understanding of One Punch Man, he immediately knew that the thing in front of him belonged to Genos. That righteous blonde cyborg. Suyu smiled slightly. Unexpectedly, the things here are basically exactly the same as those in One Punch Man. Genos is strong, but Suyu's goal is not this. Suyu wandered around the shelves. Items appeared in Suyu's field of vision one by one, but neither is what Suyu wants. Even, Suyu also saw a green hair. The trembling tornado ranked second among the S ranks. That is the existence second only to Saitama. At this time, Suyu's memory is completely a cheat, and others need to rely on the strategy of the seniors to choose a strong opportunity. And myself, just relying on my own memory, can get the best chance in the forbidden area. Suyu smiled lightly. Trembling tornado is very strong, but compared with Saitama, it is obviously still a lot worse. Finally, Suyu even saw the king's game console. Seeing this, the corners of Suyu's mouth couldn't help twitching slightly. I don't know that unlucky guy will choose king in the future. You know, this is a man who has been misunderstood by the Heroes Association. There is no use at all. After searching for a long time, Suyu finally found a discount coupon for a shopping mall under a cabinet on a shelf. That crumpled folded scroll looked extremely inconspicuous, but the moment Suyu saw it, the eyes began to shine brightly. This is the representative item of Saitama. Suyu's breath couldn't help but become disturbed. As the strongest bald man on the surface, his ability to break the limit is obviously what Suyu needs most. Without any hesitation, Suyu directly chose Saitama. Start apprenticeship. This is currently only a C-level hero. Suddenly, a white light enveloped Suyu's body again, and gradually, the world changed again. At the same time, as for the outside world, a white light lit up outside the one-punch forbidden area, which made Duan Binglin a little surprised and unbelievable. Because the white light means that Suyu chose C-level heroes, those ordinary people who don't have much ability. According to the strategies of the seniors who explored at Yangcheng University, these are just C-rank heroes who are a little bit stronger than ordinary people, so they are useless at all. I can only use two words to describe the other party. And in another part of the forbidden area of One Punch, Li Yeshan's body was hidden in the shadows. After seeing the white light shining outside the forbidden area, Li Yeshan's expression became even more silent. In the eyes, there is even more disappointment that cannot be concealed. This time, Li Yeshan was really disappointed in Suyu. If the forbidden area in Weapon is just Suyu's bad luck, then this time, well, Li Yeshan sighed, and slowly left the forbidden area of One Punch. Perhaps, I really misread it. A voice full of loneliness resounded through the air. The news of Suyu's apprenticeship with a C-level hero quickly spread in Yangcheng University. After all, even though Suyu is just a freshman, he killed more than a dozen 4-star level beasts, which made Suyu's reputation reach a peak level in the entire Yangcheng University. In the cafeteria, Cao Ying, Wu Dun and Enruruo sat at the table and ate. There was a burst of discussion from the side. Did you know that the school specially opened a one-punch forbidden area for Suyu, and guess what happened? That Suyu actually chose a C-level hero to apprentice. I don't think he's out of his mind. The three of Cao Ying frowned slightly upon hearing this. They still have feelings for Suyu. After all, they are still teammates who have worked together in Ghost Slayer. But when I heard that Suyu was apprenticed to a C-level hero, I was still a little helpless. Oh, it's a pity, even if you choose a B-level hero randomly, it's good. Didn't Duan Binglin tell him when he took him there? And Ruruo was a little hard to understand. Cao Ying shook his head and said in a deep voice, I don't know, but I have already chosen, so there is no room for regret. It's a pity. Wu Dun and Enruruo nodded. Apprenticeship C-level. Completely wasted this opportunity, it is really a pity. And at this moment, outside the forbidden area, Duan Binglin pursed her lips and looked at the entrance complicatedly. Will you be the kind of person who chooses a C-level hero? Duan Binglin murmured softly, as if she was asking, but she didn't know who she was asking. Although she didn't understand Suyu's choice, there was still a voice in Duan Binglin's heart. Just like it was in the forbidden area of Ghost Slayer. Suyu also did something that is difficult for ordinary people to understand. But it turned out that Suyu was right in the end. Just don't know this time. Duan Binglin looked at the entrance, her beautiful eyes flickered slightly. She had a faint premonition in her heart that maybe Suyu would surprise everyone after coming out of the one-punch forbidden area. White light wrapped Suyu's body, and the space in front of Suyu changed again. He came to a pure white space. The space is somewhat similar to the previous space in Hokage. In front of Suyu, a man with an extremely ordinary appearance appeared. The only recognizable thing is the man's head. A bald head that shines brightly. Suyu looked at this man and couldn't help laughing. The bald head like a light bulb is its signature symbol, and it likes to wear a yellow uniform with a cape. This is not Saitama, what is it? It seems that my choice is right. In front of him, Saitama looked at Suyu, obviously curious. He kept looking at Suyu, left and right, as if looking at a novelty. Suyu waited quietly, waiting for Saitama to speak. Sure enough, not too long later, Saitama withdrew his curious gaze, looked at Suyu, and said curiously, Why do you want to worship me as a teacher? In your world, no one would want to take a C-level hero as their teacher. Saitama shrugged his shoulders, spread his palms, and said helplessly. At least not before you came. Suyu smiled and said. I said I did it out of interest, do you believe me? Saitama froze for a moment, not knowing how to speak. Just about to refuse, but was surprised to see that Suyu took a bunch of crumpled supermarket discount coupons from his arms. Hiss. Saitama has a headache. After all, he is just a salted fish, and he doesn't want to accept apprentices at all. But because of the rules, and Suyu took out things that represented his belongings, he had to accept it even if he didn't accept it. The corners of Suyu's mouth curled up slightly. Unexpectedly, there will be a day when I will be able to give the strongest person on this earth a headache. Saitama crouched on the ground, holding his head. Why do you want to worship me as a teacher? Saitama kept hitting the ground with his head, and a hole was punched out of the ground of this pure white space. Suyu couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly. As expected of a man with the ability to break through restrictions, he can even break through space. For a moment, Suyu became more determined in his heart. This ability must be acquired by oneself. Afterwards, Suyu watched Saitama quietly and complained. After watching One Punch Man, Suyu knows Saitama's character very well. After a while, Saitama will naturally accept this fact. Sure enough, after a while, Saitama stood up slowly, looked at Suyu helplessly, and said, all right. Along with Saitama's promise, a cold voice gradually sounded in Suyu's mind. Ding, I have succeeded in apprenticeship, and I have the ability to break the limit. Suyu held back his excitement and said to himself in his heart. Open the properties panel. Name, Suyu. Race, human. Constitution, 1000. Spirit, 800. Strength, 1000. Agility, 1000. Abilities, 8 inner gates, 4th gate, injury gate, atomic slash, breath of the sun, god of fire, Kagura, breath of water, breath of wind, breath of rock, breath of fire, breath of thunder, breaking limits, 1% progress. Lineage, body of Uzumaki, Sharingan Sangoyu. In the column of ability, there is an extra limit breaking. It's here. Suyu cheered inwardly. However, Suyu gradually calmed down. Although I have acquired this ability, if I want to fully control it, I still have to study with Saitama in the next month. In a short period of time, the space in front of him changed again. Soon, Suyu only felt a wave of dizziness coming from him. As the dizziness disappeared, Suyu opened his eyes. He found that now, he came to the world of One Punch Man. Beside, just standing Saitama. The sun shone on the bald head, reflecting a dazzling light. Suyu narrowed his eyes, looked around, and began to judge which plot point this time point belonged to. In this way, you can arrange your own learning in the most effective way. The surrounding area is full of tall buildings. Suddenly, there were radio broadcasts in the whole city. Emergency evacuation begins now. The disaster level this time is a ghost level, which is extremely dangerous. Residents are requested not to go out. Suyu's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked towards the sky. All I saw was that mosquitoes were all over the sky, like seawater, swarming and wreaking havoc throughout the city. And in the center of the mosquito, there is a mosquito queen, showing a greedy look. Suddenly, a lonely voice sounded. Add as target. Suddenly, a huge flame bloomed above the sky, roaring like a fire dragon. Wrap the mosquito queen directly. However, these flames fell on the mosquito queen and did not cause much damage. Suyu watched all this and reacted instantly. That lonely voice is Geno's, who ranks 16th among the S-class heroes. And this time period, it should be time for Janos to become a teacher. Flames of fire bloomed above the sky. Like ferocious fire dragons, they roared out. Over the entire sky, there were bursts of roars. Suyu stood beside Saitama, raised his head, and looked at the battlefield in the sky. The battle above the sky already has a battle between 5-star fighters. If it was placed at Yangcheng University, Genos could be a teacher. It has to be said that although Genos has not yet completed the transformation, his combat power is still very terrifying. Snapped. Suddenly, Suyu heard crisp noises coming from around him. Then looked over. What I saw was that on Saitama's head, blue veins burst out, and beside Saitama, there was a small mosquito making an unpleasant sound. Saitama blasted out with punches, but just couldn't kill the mosquito. Saitama became angry and rushed over directly. Seeing this, the corners of Suyu's mouth couldn't help twitching slightly. The most powerful man on earth can't even deal with a single mosquito. Just when Suyu was in a daze, Saitama picked up the sprayer and killed the mosquito. While running, he continued to insult him. Don't go, we haven't decided yet. At this moment, Saitama's mentality has been ruined by this little mosquito. Suyu smiled helplessly and followed Saitama's pace. Unknowingly, the two had come to the center of the battle. Mosquitoes all over the sky, like seawater, swarmed in, making harsh noises constantly. In front of him, an arrogant young man with yellow hair had his left arm broken, and he was constantly jumping with electric arcs. However, in front of the young man, the mosquito queen was also attacked by the young man's terror one after another, and her feet were chopped off. But with the mosquitoes all over the sky, the body of the mosquito queen began to repair bit by bit. That young man was obviously Genos. This is the first time that Suyu looked at Genos so closely. At this time, Genos obviously also discovered the existence of Saitama and Suyu. His brows furrowed slightly, and he said coldly, "This is not where you should come, leave quickly." Saitama scratched his head, looking at Genos' broken arm with some curiosity. "Hey, you're a robot." Suyu took a deep look at Genos. Although Genos looks extremely lonely now, in the next plot, Genos will learn from Saitama. However, even if Genos is apprenticed to Saitama, without Saitama's ability to break the limit, the combat will not improve much. Genos' combat power, after all, still depends on mechanical transformation. Suddenly, mosquitoes all over the sky swarmed towards where the three of them were sitting. It seemed that he wanted to swallow the three people in front of him directly. A cold light flashed across Janos' eyes. The mechanical arm made a terrifying roar, and waves of ultimate energy began to condense in the mechanical arm, and then blasted out instantly. Rumble. The fiery energy instantly swallowed the entire mosquito into a wave and burned it directly. Suyu also opened the door to injury at this moment, otherwise, even Suyu would not be able to withstand this move. The roar gradually disappeared, and all the mosquitoes in the surrounding 500 meters disappeared completely. Only pieces of ruins under the roar of guns remained. After all, it is still a bug, even if it can talk, it has the IQ of a human being. But I still deliberately gather mosquitoes in everything. Is this to make me burn better? Genos stood intact, his yellow hair swaying slightly. The lonely eyes seemed to be indifferent to everything. Oops, two people were missed. While talking, Genos suddenly realized that Saitama and Suyu existed before. At this time, the naked Saitama scratched his head and looked at Genos curiously. "Hey, your mechanical arm is so powerful." Genos' eyes froze slightly, his level 1 did not leave the slightest damage to Saitama's body. Just burned Saitama's clothes. The appearance of Suyu shocked Genos even more. All I saw was that Suyu was wearing a light combat suit, wrapped in a faint green energy. Not only is there no damage, even the clothes are not damaged. Genos looked at the two, his eyes gradually became a little dignified. The blow I just had was able to burn down all monsters at the ghost level. And the two of them didn't have any injuries. What does it mean? It illustrates the horror of the two. At least, the combat power has infinitely approached him. Just when Genos was about to speak, there were bursts of screams in the distance. Gia, idiot, I don't need them anymore. Boom. Under the ruins, a red figure rushed out instantly. All I saw was that the previous mosquito queen had transformed into a red form. Suyu's eyes narrowed slightly, if I remember correctly. The mosquito queen in this state is already infinitely close to the dragon level. Because I have become stronger. The mosquito queen let out a high-pitched laugh. Then, the arm slashed suddenly. Suddenly, the building in front of him exploded, as if cut by some sharp blade. Boom. Countless gravels fell from the sky. All I saw was that the mosquito queen rushed towards Genos in an instant. The speed was so fast that it even left afterimages between the sky and the earth. In an instant, he came behind Genos. Genos' eyes narrowed slightly, and he was about to move just now, but he was shocked to find that the mosquito queen appeared behind him at some point. Janos' pupils vibrated wildly. Boom boom boom. The Mosquito Queen grinned wildly. With one punch and one kick, he frantically fought Geno's body. The cyborg Genos, in the hands of the evolved Mosquito Queen, has no power to resist. You know, although Genos has not been upgraded, he still has the combat power of a 5-star warrior. Su Yu looked at the Mosquito Queen. Perhaps, the combat power of the Mosquito Queen has already reached 6 stars. On the sky, Genos was attacked infinitely, and fragments fell from his body. Genos' face was extremely gloomy. As a cyborg, he would not feel any pain even when he was being attacked. Ahahaha, with your fist, even a mosquito is immune to death. The Mosquito Queen grinned wildly, but the attack speed in her hands did not weaken at all. Genos was beaten without any resistance at all. Looking at Genos, who was hit by infinite combos in the sky, Su Yu sighed. Then he looked at Saitama, who was naked beside him. Saitama's expression is still calm and breezy. Su Yu didn't say anything, because Su Yu knew that Saitama would make a move. And this Queen Mosquito, who is already comparable to a 6-star warrior, is no match for herself. On the sky, wounds appeared on Geno's body. That's why, the more blood you absorb, the more physical skills can evolve. Totally careless. Genos murmured. The body continued to fall towards the ground. On top of Genos, the Mosquito Queen swooped down in an instant, with a hint of ferocious expression on her face. Next, just blow your head off. The Mosquito Queen grinned grimly. The sharp arms shone coldly under the sunlight. Genos stared at the Mosquito Queen, who kept coming back again and again, narrowing his eyes slightly. In that case, then you can only explode yourself. On Geno's body, a blue light suddenly flashed, as if there was extremely terrifying energy condensed on Geno's body. Under this terrifying energy, even a 5-star peak martial artist would be easily crushed. Su Yu looked at Saitama beside him. What I saw, Saitama walked step by step towards the direction where Genos fell. A slight smile appeared on the corner of Su Yu's mouth. Saitama is about to make a move, now it's safe. On Earth, there is basically nothing that can withstand a Saitama punch. Even this Mosquito Queen, who is comparable to a 6-star warrior. On the sky, Genos frantically condenses the energy in his body, making final preparations for self-destruction. He's ready to fall with the Mosquito Queen. The distance between the two is getting closer. Just when the two were about to come into contact, Genos was just about to blow himself up. An ordinary fist slammed into the head of the Mosquito Queen at an unimaginable speed beyond the speed of sound. Terrifying power. Even Genos, who has not been bombarded by fists, can feel the endless power filled with it. Facing such a force, Genos even felt a slight tremor in his heart. Boom. The fist landed on the head of the Mosquito Queen, and in an instant, the head of the Mosquito Queen exploded into flowers. Blood exploded out. Instant fall. Blood was spilled all over the earth. At this time, Genos saw a naked young man who stabilized his figure, and his fist still stayed in midair. Genos stared blankly. Even though he fell heavily to the ground, his pupils couldn't help trembling at the naked man. A smile appeared on Saitama's face. Mosquito, finally killed. Saitama was just about to leave when Genos stopped him. Please wait a moment. Saitama looked at Genos blankly. What? Genos looked at Saitama gravely. May I have your name? Saitama. Saitama was naked and said flatly. I want you to accept me as a disciple. Genos was lying on the ground, paralyzed all over, his eyes were extremely determined. The clouds on the earth and the sky were torn open a huge and hideous crack. Su Yu stood where he was, watching all of this, with a slightly cracked smile on the corner of his mouth. Sure enough, Genos began to apprentice Saitama. Saitama's home. Saitama and Genos sat opposite each other. And in a small empty space, Su Yu is doing push-ups. In One Punch Forbidden Land, Su Yu gained Saitama's ability to break limits. Similarly, if you can do push-ups like Saitama, you can become stronger. While doing push-ups, Su Yu could clearly feel that his physical body seemed to be constantly getting stronger. It seems that there is a wonderful ability that is changing the cells in his body. Just doing 100 push-ups, Su Yu even felt that his strength had increased by at least 100 points. With such a terrifying improvement, even Su Yu couldn't help sighing. As expected of a man without limits, such an ability is simply pervert. At this time, Suyu can know why Saitama can become so strong. This ability is really too pervert. With this sweetness, Suyu continued to do push-ups, and the strength began to increase along with the number of push-ups. And on a property panel that only Suyu can see. In the column of ability to break restrictions, the progress bar inside has increased by 0.5%. It turns out that imitating the teacher can improve the progress bar. And the other side. Saitama stared at Genos, watching carefully. You recovered so quickly. Genos sat upright. Well, my whole body is made of machines, so my recovery is faster. You are so strange, Saitama said. Genos stared at Saitama and said solemnly. Teacher, what parts are you using? I don't have any parts. Hey, that skin-colored armor on your head is. This is the skin. Genos stroked his chin and said solemnly. That is to say, teacher, you are bald at a young age. Saitama roared. I'm so bald. When the two were talking, Suyu's eyes moved slightly, he stopped the push-ups, and looked at the top of Saitama's head. At this time, Genos also jumped up from the cushion. A yellow light flashed in his eyes. Something is moving at high speed. Coming. Genos suddenly looked over Saitama's head. Then I saw that a yellow lightning flashed out instantly. In an instant, Suyu chopped off the head of a green mantis monster, and the green blood exploded. It's not over yet. Suyu jumped out of the window. The magic knife 1,000 blades appeared instantly. 1,000 pieces of debris drifted away in an instant. 1,000 blades flying star. 1,000 pieces of fragments were instantly controlled, and they all rushed towards the two monsters not far away. The sharp fragments easily chopped the two monsters into pieces. Suyu's body burst out, stepping on the fragments, jumping like a feather. With both eyes, the Sharingan of Sangoyu turned wildly, looking for the ground. Suddenly, Suyu's eyes froze slightly. Found it. In Suyu's field of vision, above the ground, there was a groundhog monster, constantly swimming below the ground. Holding the magic knife Shinran, Suyu aimed at the groundhog and let out a soft yell. It's bloody. Thousands of fragments were crazily mixed together, forming a powerful storm. In an instant, the groundhog protruding from the ground was sucked out abruptly, and then strangled to pieces under the fragments. After finishing everything, Suyu just stood there quietly. At the same time, in the column of ability to break restrictions, the progress bar increased by 0.5 again. Impressively reached 2%. Suyu frowned slightly. It turned out that the progress bar was added in this way. It can be improved by killing monsters or imitating the training of apprentices. However, it seems that the improvement of killing monsters is the fastest. At this time, Saitama and Genos also came behind Suyu one after another, looking at the monsters' stumps all over the floor. Genos' eyes were a little dignified. At this time, Genos remembered in astonishment. This young man in battle uniform was not damaged at all in his previous attack. But now, the combat power displayed by this young man is not bad at all compared to himself. There is even a vague tendency to surpass oneself. Have a high energy response. Genos' eyes froze slightly, and suddenly a metal iron fist passed across Genos' face. It landed on the building next to it, piercing the building directly, making a huge hole. Amidst the smoke, a metal orangutan appeared in the sight of the three. On the other side, a hideous and huge yellow golden lion monster leapt out. Looking at the three of them with a grim smile. The armored gorilla suddenly punched Genos frantically, and Genos reacted very quickly. He easily dodged the armored gorilla's fist, and made attacks one after another, landing on the armored gorilla's body. But only sparks exploded, without leaving the slightest trace. I am the crystallization of the wisdom of the House of Evolution, your attack is useless to me. The metal gorilla grinned grimly and said to Genos. Evolution House. Genos stood up, staring at the armored gorilla, said. What are you looking for from the teacher? Suyu looked at the two monsters indifferently and said. They are here to collect the teacher's specimens. Specimen. Saitama and Genos froze for a moment. Suyu looked deeply at the two monsters. If I remember correctly, in the previous battle with the Mosquito Queen, someone had already noticed the existence of Saitama. And that person is the doctor from the House of Evolution. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.